Welcome to episode 165 of the Brainy Business, Understanding the Psychology of Why People Buy. In today's episode, I'm excited to introduce you to Matej Sucha, managing partner of MINDWORX and founder of insideBE. Ready? Let's get started.
You are listening to the Brainy Business Podcast, where we dig into the psychology of why people buy and help you incorporate behavioral economics into your business, making it more brain-friendly. Now here's your host, Melina Palmer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melina Palmer, and I want to welcome you to the Brainy Business Podcast. Today, I'm very excited to have Matej Sucha with me on the show to talk about the importance of applied behavioral economics and the work he has done to help shape the field. As you'll hear in our conversation today, there are two fairly distinct camps in the behavioral sciences, the academic research and the applied. While many of us work together, there are different goals for each, and there can be disagreement from time to time. In general, I think most of us see the need for both sides and how they're necessary to move the entire field forward. Matej is, like me, an advocate for behavioral economics being used and shared in business as much as possible, which is why he recently founded and became the editor-in-chief of insideBE.com, which you'll hear about on the show, in addition to his work as a managing partner at MINDWORX. Links to both of those, as well as lots of links to past episodes, books mentioned on the show, and how to get in touch with Matej are within the show notes for the episode, which are waiting for you within the app you're listening to or at thebrainybusiness.com/165. Those already on the Brainy Business list got a direct link from me in the email you receive every Friday. Not on the list yet? Simply sign up for any freebie at thebrainybusiness.com and you'll be automatically added. The freebie for this episode is the first chapter of my award-winning book, What Your Customer Wants and Can't Tell You. And if you already have the book, in which case, thank you, you'll also be automatically added to the list when you get your copy of the free PDF companion workbook. Both are housed in our free behavioral economics community called the Be Thoughtful Revolution. There's a link to join that global community in those show notes as well. Now let's get right to it. Matej Sucha, welcome to the Brainy Business Podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have you here. I told a little bit about you in that intro, but I always like for the guests to say, who they are, how they got here, how you found yourself in this wonderful world of behavioral economics and behavioral science.
My story is basically coincidence, which started some 10 years ago when I came across Predictably Irrational by chance. I used to read a lot about business and entrepreneurship and management. And one day I stumbled across Predictably Irrational and I fell in love with the topic. I was still at the time I was at the university, and from that moment on, I dedicated all my free time to learning all I could about behavioral science. And then I graduated, got a corporate job as actuary. So I studied insurance mathematics. But then 3 years in the job, I caught myself just dreaming about advising companies how to apply these insights in their marketing efforts, sales, HR, and so on. And I quit. And in mid-2015, I started my consultancy, MINDWORX. Ever since, we did a lot of projects for all kind of banks, insurance companies, telco businesses in many countries. Then this year, we launched a big project, which I'm really proud of, insideBE.com, which is a hub dedicated to behavioral economics in business, with case studies, courses, how-to guides from the top minds out there, including Rory Sutherland, Simon Moore, Jez Groom, and many, many others.
That's awesome. Jez has been on the show before, as has Dan Ariely, author of Predictably Irrational. So we'll be linking to those in the show notes. And I know that, you and I, when we first connected and were chatting, found this, very much kindred spirits, I suppose, in that the need for applied stuff in behavioral economics and just helping people having more, like you said, case studies and things, which is why, you founded insideBE, of a space where people can share information that has been kind of locked up. Because when you get into applied space and you're working with businesses, people are very secretive with their data, right? They don't want to share with their competitors and things like that. So tell, I guess, just a little bit about that journey and maybe how you started finding others to be part of that process, bringing them in.
Sure. So this idea came around a year ago, so summer 2020, when I started thinking more and more about how little focus there is on the business applications of behavioral economics or behavioral science. The more I was thinking about it, the more I was frustrated, because I think it doesn't have the place it deserves. Despite the fact it's been around for quite a while, it's still in the phase of early adoption. It's not at the center of attention of businesses. And when I was thinking, why is it? I think the answer is that we as behavioral experts, we do a really bad job showing businesses how they can benefit. And it was bothering me, and I wanted to change it, because I believe there hasn't been one kind of movement or new approach which became really mainstream and really popular without businesses applying it. And the truth is that when you Google behavioral economics, you come across the same things over and over and over again. And I don't mean to say that, those experiments are bad or boring. They're amazing, like Save More Tomorrow, organ donations, tax collection, but they're obsolete and they don't show businesses how they can benefit. They're enough to spark interest, but that's it. And we have to put more emphasis on the business applications. And so I started elaborating on the idea, reaching out to all the people I knew from the field. And it turned out that we are all on the same page. We all feel that there is not enough emphasis. We should do a better job showing businesses how they can use it, because that's the only way to grow the field. But no one is doing it. It's as if there was this weird social norm that if you are a behavioral expert or behavioral practitioner, you only talk about non-profit interventions or non-profit projects. It's as if we were ashamed of helping businesses. And it's a whole different question. Why is it so? But as a matter of fact, it is so. And so I thought I must change this. And so for the past 9 months, I spend most of my working hours developing insideBE. We gathered an amazing team and an amazing team of experts, around 2 or 3 dozen experts right now, who contribute with their case studies, their insights, their opinions on insideBE, which once again is all focused on how to use all these insights in business. So this was basically the journey we launched nearly a month ago now, and the feedback has been great. It seems as if people really feel that way, that they want to see more business applications, practical applications.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then for whenever people are listening to this, to know that was about, so May 2021 sounds like is maybe when you launched?
At the very end of May 2021.
So definitely, and I have found the same thing as we've talked about before, just there's so many of us that it's like the new this next step in behavioral economics, where I've said the same thing for years. The applied stuff is amazingly valuable. It's wonderful research. It needed to come first. And books like Predictably Irrational and Nudge and Thinking Fast and Slow, those were necessary to just spark the interest, to get people to say, whoa, this is cool. But now it's the so what? It's the time of the applied behavioral economics, knowing that the research, the academic stuff is going to continue to move the field forward in its own way, but working together to be able to show how you can actually use this. It's why I wrote my book. It's why you created insideBE, all the stuff. So Can you tell a little bit about, I guess, what gets you excited when you think about projects? And maybe you have a great case study of something you had done at MINDWORX or, something else that you've done that's really like, if you were looking at how to apply behavioral economics, kind of what's your approach and what's a great example you can share with the listeners?
Well, I'll be more than happy to talk about several case studies because we mainly focus on the applications into consumer behavior and in HR. And lately, we've been getting more and more projects from work safety and changing employee behavior. But when I started, I thought that applying behavioral insights was about those tiny little changes in communication, those little nudges which spark a big difference. And very fast, when we got our first projects, I realized no, it's not about that. I mean, that's like the cherry on top. But the path which leads to actually knowing what to say and how to say it is much more complicated. And that's why we developed our own approach to what we call a behavioral audit. We have, we call it a deep dive framework, where we analyze the motivators, the barriers which stand in the way, the decision-making process of customers in order to know when we should create say an intervention or a message or a tiny nudge in order to eventually move people in the direction that we want them to move. And I'll give you a couple of examples if you wish. So one of the projects which I'm still fascinated by is a project for a job search website, which approached us with the task to increase conversions. And what does a conversion mean? A person reading a job posting, a job ad, and sending their CV. So this is a conversion. Why they want bigger conversions? Because they are paid by the number of CVs or people which are eventually hired through their website. Early on, they told us, okay, but you can touch everything, but you cannot touch the job ads themselves because the companies are in charge of those. So we thought, okay, challenge accepted. We had a huge playground. We could, play with the layout of the website, and so we looked into research, and what we found out was that when you look for a new job, you go through a lot of uncertainties. Am I going to be a good fit? How will my colleagues be? How the boss will be like, and so on. And it turns out that on average, women are more reluctant to react to a job ad, and they are easier discouraged by requirements. So on average for a man, it suffices to fulfill around 60% of the requirements. For a woman, it's nearly 100%. So we designed one intervention around exactly that. So we reassured people as they scroll down to the employee requirements, and the website noticed that they were about to leave. We triggered a pop-up window which told them something along the lines, you don't fulfill all the requirements? Don't worry, send your CV anyway. It's just a few clicks which cost you nothing. And so this was one thing which we tested among, I guess, 5 or 6 interventions. This proved to work really well. But the most effective was social proof. And if you think about it, social proof is in telling people how many people before them have already applied for a job is, in a rational world, really stupid.
Right.
If you have 2 similar jobs and 5 people have applied for the first one and 25 for the second one, well, you have a much better chance of being accepted in the first one. But the opposite proved to be correct. And when we tested social proof, it turned out that when you include social proof, the probability that a person will send their CV goes up by 138%. which was like, wow, absolutely amazing. Just one little change, one little counterintuitive change in the website design, which proved to be super, super effective. So, this is a great example of how findings from research can inspire business solutions which prove to work. Around hiring, we did another project where we restructured the job ad itself, and it attracted 3 times as many applicants as the old job ad. We redesigned direct emails for an insurance company where there was a 300% increase in conversions. And this is also an interesting one. Do you want me to tell you about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So this insurance company was offering its customers travel insurance for 1 year for free. The business idea behind it was to basically it would serve as a hook, and people would take up the insurance, and then from the second year on, they would be charged for it. And in a rational world, again, you're getting something for free, which is objectively of good quality and great value. And still people didn't take it up. The conversion was really, really bad. So they didn't really understand what is going on. Why aren't people interested in something which is objectively really good? And so they came to us, and we looked at it, and we thought, okay, so it's not a problem of a lack of motivation. There's absolutely no point to try to motivate people by making the offer even more attractive. And by the way, this is, I truly believe, one of the biggest mistakes that marketers make. They only focus on how can I motivate my customers. So what we did was to look at the second component of behavior or behavior change, which is barriers, or removing friction, removing barriers. And when I say barriers, it's very often not objective barriers like too many steps or the process being too complicated. This is, of course, something which needs to be addressed. But I believe even more important are the psychological barriers. What's happening in your customers' minds which prevents them or discourages them from taking up an attractive offer? And very often what we find out in many of our projects, the number one reason is uncertainty. So there is something which customers fear, are uncertain about, some question or concern that they didn't get an answer for. And in this very specific case, the concern that they had was actually twofold. On the one hand, the insurance coverage, they didn't exactly know if the insurance coverage was sufficient. So what we did, we simply gave them the information that these are the amounts these are the sums insured. So no worries, your coverage is high enough. But the most important uncertainty was, or fear, was that I will forget to cancel the free travel insurance. So I'd rather not take it at all. Everybody has experienced this. And so what we did was we told them, no worries, you won't forget because we'll remind you 6 weeks before the insurance ends. We sent it out. There was a beautiful A/B test and a 3-fold increase in conversions. Not by changing the offer, not by increasing motivation, but by understanding and removing psychological barriers which stood in the way.
Yeah, I love from both of those examples. They very much get at. So I agree with you. One of my favorite things about behavioral economics, and I talk about this on the show all the time, is from when you were first looking at it, the small changes that can make a really big difference. I talk about it all the time. It's very valuable. And it's not that you just slap a new frame on something or throw out a new anchoring number and it'll always work. You have to do the work first to properly understand the problem. I have an episode about that, which I'll be linking in the show notes. But understanding what's going on, digging a little bit deeper, that's where most businesses go wrong, I find, whether it's applying behavioral economics or just looking at working on any project is that you jump right into problem solving mode and assume that the first thing that comes to your mind is the problem and it's time to go fix it. Like you said, people just must not be motivated. The offer's not good enough. But no, right? It was a great offer. That's not the problem at all. When you understand the problem, it's a very simple solution often to fix it, but you have to know what's going on and then start testing some things to see what is going to make a difference. My favorite, whenever I talk about this, is going to Einstein, who they said, was asked, if you had an hour to save the world, how would you spend that hour? And he said he would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes solving it. And so many of us don't even have the other ratio to where we spend 5 minutes of our respective hours thinking about the problem. We just take, maybe 5 seconds and just jump in. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you want to expand a little bit about like that understanding the problem?
Absolutely. And I, again, think that the problem is twofold. So on the one hand, companies, salespeople, marketeers, product designers, they don't have the right mindset. So they don't even think about understanding the problem, and they jump onto creating solutions, as you're saying. And the second part of the problem is that they, even if they want to understand the customer, they try to understand the problem, they don't know how. And I guess this is a place where behavioral science or behavioral economics, whatever you call it, can teach us so much, because it is not only about a bunch of principles which have been researched and which prove to work. It is, in my opinion, first and foremost about a mindset. And I truly believe that you don't really need to know all these principles if you have the behavioral mindset and you understand, for example, that behavior is a mix of motivation and removing frictions. Just this one tiny insight can help you create amazing solutions, and you don't even have to know about all the behavioral principles. So you're absolutely right. So companies should think more about what is the actual problem, what am I solving, who am I talking to, when should I talk to those people, but also they should tap into behavioral science and behavioral insights to get the tools how to actually analyze the problem.
Right. I look at this, I talk about it as being a curious questioner. And this, just looking around you and asking things like, why did I click and open that email? Why did I feel the need to delete this email? Why was I interested by that article and not another one? Why did I even hesitate for a second on that Instagram ad or whatever it is? And then to say, with my stuff I'm sending, would I have stopped? I am often shocked when I have worked with marketing teams and whatever in the past, where we talk about the post, they're sending their direct mail postcard or whatever it is. And you say, like, would you throw this away? Like, honestly, like if this came in your mailbox, would you have even given it a second glance? And, so many people say, wow, I never even thought about it. Like, whoa, like, well, that's step one, right? Like, let's be more thoughtful, as I talk about here on the show all the time. But, just taking that time to not let that subconscious run rampant, and just every so often. And it's something that takes some practice as you're first getting started, because the subconscious wants to do things the way it always has. And so if instead you just, a couple times a day, walking through a store, looking at things online, why did I like that or not?
It's absolutely about asking the right questions. And one of the biggest aha moments that our clients have is when we ask them the following super simple question: why aren't customers doing what you want them to do? And they're like, wow, I never actually asked this question. Now, we always ask the question, how can we get customers to do something? We never ask why they're not doing it right now. And there's a wonderful article about exactly this on insideBE by Matthew Wilcox, the author of The Business of Choice, where he elaborates on 4 different kinds of barriers which might stand in the way. Yeah, so I guess it is a lot about asking the right questions and also adopting the right mindset where not everything that works makes sense and not everything that makes sense works. This is a quote from Rory Sutherland, and I love it because it's basically the gist of what we do or how companies should look at their customers. And also I find it often a bias where companies face seemingly big problems or big challenges, and they look for elaborate and complicated solutions. And the truth is that often the solution can be really simple. Like just today, I was editing an article for insideBE from Decision Technology about their case study where they try to reduce insurance fraud. A huge problem, a really complicated problem. The solutions that they designed and rolled out, which reduced fraud by 30%, was so simple. Why? Because they understood the problem and they didn't try to design something super elaborate using AI and all kind of newest technologies and psychological profiling, you name it. They just understood what's going on in people's minds. They understood their subconscious, and they were able to design a really simple yet powerful solution.
Yeah. Dr. Benny Chung from Deck Tech was here on the show. It's been months now, but we'll definitely link to that in the show notes. I talk about that example in my book as well. That opportunistic insurance fraud example is one of those, like you said, it was a billion-pound problem that they were able to save hundreds of millions by some very simple things, by testing 18 different interventions and understanding where the nudgeable moment is, right? So that's that behavior, the motivation. When you were talking about that same, that nudgeable moment being when someone's just about to leave, when you can tell when they're going to apply, and whether it's mostly women at that point realizing, oh, I only meet, 60% of these qualifications, I'm out. And it says, wait. We know you might be thinking about leaving, but don't. Just what's the harm, right? That's that moment where you're on the fence. And the same with that opportunistic insurance fraud being that moment of where you say, well, I know my 16-year-old son's going to be driving the car, but I'll say I'm the primary driver, right? You have that little bit. It's not like you planned for, months about how you were going to trick the insurance company, right? It's just in the moment. You're trying to figure out which way to go. And so finding that critical moment, it's so much better to invest the time up front instead of just, again, redesigning something that you didn't have to, or creating this whole new experience to try to circumvent things from happening. But that one tiny moment can make the biggest difference.
Absolutely. And I think this Deck Tech case study is a great example of the fact that very often timing is more important than the message itself. And we see that time and again when we test different kind of messages. I mean, many of them prove to work really well. But if they were timed at a different moment, they wouldn't. They simply wouldn't. And again, in order to think about timing doesn't require a deep knowledge of behavioral science. You have to have the mindset. You have to be able to analyze the decision-making process of your customer. And the behavioral insights, they can come later. But the mindset is, in my opinion, very, very, very crucial.
Yeah. So either from what you've done over the years at MINDWORX or now in reviewing as, editor-in-chief at insideBE, going through all these case studies and reading them over, talking with people. Do you have some tips where you would say, as far as understanding that mindset, where would someone in business, if they're listening to this and they're now inspired, excited, where would you say that they start, in your opinion?
Well, we exactly created insideBE because if you're a business person, there's no better place to start than to learn from the amazing work of the greatest minds from the field. So I think that there are plenty of great books, but if you're a business person and you're interested in the business applications, you will often end up reading a 300-page long book just to find one or two business examples. And that's why we do what we do, because we want to bring to people, the applied stuff, just the actionable stuff. I know we try to focus not on the what is going on and what's the psychology behind. I mean, that's important, but we also focus on the so what. Me as a marketer, me as an HR specialist, me as a salesperson. So what should I do with this insight? How can I apply it in my own work? And this is what we put a great emphasis on. And so if people want to get inspiration, it's a great place to start. If they want to dig deeper, there are online master classes they can have a look at. They can earn a certificate, a master classes with Rory Sudrell and the biggest minds. So I think there are a lot of great resources, including, I guess, your book, which I haven't read yet, but it's definitely top of my to-read list.
Thank you. Well, and definitely not. While my book is 300 pages, it's $299. There are way more than one or two business examples in there. So.
Well, I believe you're one of the few people in the industry who are not ashamed of admitting that you are helping businesses succeed using behavioral science, and you're not hiding it. And I think that's absolutely amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I think there's perhaps the Dunning-Kruger effect worked in my favor at the beginning when I first started and didn't know that maybe that wasn't something, that there was a reason or some unspoken norm that I was breaking early on when I launched the podcast, of like, maybe that's why there wasn't anything else, but I'm happy with it. I'm very happy to be helping businesses for sure. So when you think about, as we're wrapping up here, traditionally, when I think of a case study, and I think there was something really interesting you were saying there about insideBE, typically a case study is a business that does consulting of some sort, essentially, is able to do kind of the same thing that we were saying was the problem in the field as it is, but it's sparking enough interest for someone to say, whoa, that's interesting. And your next step is, so hire us and we'll do that for you. And it doesn't actually give you that meat of go do this so you can do it yourself. So it sounds like with the case studies on insideBE, they're taking it in a different direction, that it is this is a cool thing that happened. And, here's the insight to go do it yourself. Like there's a bit of that how to within the case study model. So it's definitely different than kind of what maybe people have in their brain as what a case study is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't do PR articles. The purpose of the content that we're creating is first and foremost to teach people how they can try it themselves. And now, being very honest here, I have learned over the 5 or 6 years I've been doing consulting that the best way to get a potential client excited and to get them want to work with you is teach them as much as possible. If I get people from a company to sit in my workshops for 2 consecutive days, they will be super excited, and that's when they will trust me and they will reach out to me and ask me for advice. And so we refused some case studies, some articles, because they were either not business related or they didn't go into enough detail. So we always focus on the how to. So it's not just we achieved this great result, but how did you do it? And why did you do what you did? Because this is the so what part. And it's not only about case studies. There's plenty of articles which are how-to guides or explain, or where we kind of decode what other companies are doing, like Netflix or Zara or Tampax. They applied all these insights in incredible ways, and I believe companies can learn a lot from just kind of understanding what these big players are doing.
Yeah. Again, we're very kindred spirits in that I do the behavioral economics analysis episodes towards, I look at Costco or Starbucks or Peloton and saying, this is what I see that they've got going on there. And, some ways of how you can do this yourself. They are some of the most popular episodes on the show. People really love them. So I'm sure that those will be popular within insideBE as well. And I'm excited. We're in the process of getting, some Brainy Business stuff into insideBE as well. So by the time this comes out, potentially it's already in there. We'll see how that all goes. Is there a last nugget or tidbit that you wish you had a chance to talk about that you can share for everybody? Maybe a piece of wisdom or something?
Well, I'd like to quote Rory Sutherland once again. And this is mainly a message to all those in the marketing and sales. And Rory says that the next big thing in marketing is not technology, it is psychology. And I usually add to that technologies come and go. There's constantly something new where you can spend literally millions. But once you understand psychology, that doesn't change. The subconscious, how people think and decide, that doesn't change, and that won't change in the next, many thousand years probably. So if companies want to gain a competitive edge, it's psychology they should focus on and embrace and systematically apply into their communication, product design, hiring, internal communication, you name it.
Yes. Yes to that. And when Dr. Cialdini was on the show, he was saying the same. There was a question from a listener about, now that people are maybe knowing more about the tools of persuasion, are things changing that they're less likely to work, and sort of, actually, these have been around for a long time. They're going to be around for a long time. It takes there's a huge amount of time to shift those concepts the brain is using. And so they can be tried and true for as long as we're all doing stuff, to be sure. So we're good to go there. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and some amazing quotes from Rory and work that you have going on within insideBE and MINDWORX. We'll link to stuff in the show notes, but where should we be linking as far as for people to learn more from you, get more information, get in touch? What's the best place for them to go?
I'll be more than happy if people reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter. We're happy to discuss case studies, happy to discuss resources, direct people to where they can learn most. And besides that, just follow insideBE and you'll learn a lot.
Yes, absolutely. So we will link to insideBE, to your LinkedIn and Twitter, and to MINDWORX within the show notes. And just want to say thank you so much again for all that you've done to help move that applied behavioral space forward. It's really important work that I know that you and I and so many amazing others see the value in. I'm excited to see what comes in the future for insideBE and the field as a whole because of your work. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Melina, and thanks a lot once again for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again to Matej Sucha for joining me on the show today. What got your brain buzzing in today's conversation? For me, I must say, I always find it to be exhilarating to talk to someone else that's passionate about applied behavioral economics and how important it is to spread the word about it around the world. And I love that Matej went out and did something about it. Instead of just thinking, that'd be cool, I wish that existed, he made it and has brought so many amazing people together to contribute case studies and help others to learn how they too can apply behavioral science into their business with revolutionized case studies that actually show you how to do something instead of only being there to make you have to hire the company sharing. Yes, you can hire these amazing experts and in many cases likely should, but I love that you don't have to. That those who are interested to really get into the space have a path to do so. And you can learn from some of the best in the world who are already on the platform, including Rory Sutherland, Jez Groom, Nir Eyal, Tim Houlihan, Nuala Walsh, all past guests on the show, as well as many others, including me, which I'm sure is going to just continue to grow and thrive over time. Go check it out, read some case studies, and learn more. There are links to the specific case studies that Matej mentioned during the show, as well as the larger site of insideBE, so you can check that out within the show notes, which, as a reminder, are waiting for you at thebrainybusiness.com/165. And as we close out the show, I want to share something very exciting. The Brainy Business was nominated for the Best Market Research Podcast of 2021, and voting is on now to determine the winner. This award is in partnership between Little Bird Marketing and Green Book, and there's a link for you to vote in the show notes. Voting is open until August 31st, 2021, and the winners will be announced in October. It takes all of 10 seconds to cast your vote. You just select the Brainy Business from the drop-down of nominees, enter your first name and email address, and click submit. Easy peasy. Will you show the Brainy Business a little love by taking 10 seconds to vote for the show to be Market Research Podcast of the Year? And if you're an overachiever, maybe taking an extra step to encourage 2 of your friends to vote as well? Thank you in advance for taking the time. And no matter what, thank you for listening to the Brainy Business. I appreciate you. And thank you again to Matej Sucha for joining me on the show today. It was a delight to chat with and learn from you. Next week, on episode 166, we're getting into AI and its role in behavioral science with Sam Albert of Behaviorally. It's going to be a lot of fun. You won't want to miss it. Until then, thanks again for listening and learning with me. And remember to be thoughtful.
Thank you for listening to the Brainy Business Podcast. Melina offers virtual strategy sessions, workshops, and other services to help businesses be more brain-friendly. For more free resources, visit thebrainybusiness.com.